everybody. Bonsoir à tous et bienvenue. I'm Andrew Potter. I'm the director of McGill Institute for the Study of Canada. Merci d'être venu à cet événement très important. When I first heard about the spying on La Presse columnist Patrick Lagacé, I was outraged, but I can't say I was especially surprised. In my previous career, my most recent career as the editor of the Ottawa Citizen, a position I left last February, I had a police reporter who was very good at her job. She had very good contacts with the police force, and she used those contacts to get a number of very important stories about what was going on inside the force. But if I'd ever heard, and I knew from talking to her that she knew from her sources that witch hunts were going on inside the force, where the senior brass were trying to find out who was leaking stories. But it never occurred to me that they might have gone so far as to get a wiretap on her phone. And if I found out that they had done so, I would have been absolutely outraged. That wiretap, the surveillance of the journalists that come out in the last few days, and the possible involvement of the mayor, raised a number of vital questions about the role of free press in a democratic society, especially at a time of mass or targeted digital surveillance. And raises a number of other questions that I've asked the panel to talk about tonight, including, just what exactly is the problem here? A debate broke out on Twitter after I tweeted out this event today. A debate broke out between a number of people asking, what's the big deal here? Shouldn't the police actually serve, or shouldn't journalists actually serve to a certain extent as the investigative arm of the police? Some people think that's true. There are questions of legal and administrative concern. Where did the system break down if it did? I mean, you have a system where the mayor made a phone call, and then the police did something, and then suddenly a wiretap was on a reporter's phone. There's a chain of events there, any one of which should outrage the average citizen, in my view. And it's important to figure out just why that broke down. And then this question of where this leaves journalists and where it leaves journalism. What can journalists do to protect themselves in the face of this kind of surveillance, and should they? I had the idea after I heard about it of doing a panel. And to my surprise, I immediately got support from a number of people, including Lucinda Choden, the editor of the Gazette, who was here, from Michel Cormier, Father Canada, and Eric Jaussier, the editor-in-chief of La Presse. I also ran it by Michael Goldblum, who agreed it was worth doing, and he also agreed to come and give some opening remarks. So, for those of you who don't know, Michael Goldblum is the principal and vice chancellor of Bishop's University. He has served as a publisher of the Gazette for 7 years, and he was later publisher of the Toronto Star. In 2008, he became the 18th principal and vice chancellor of Bishop's. But most importantly for me, he serves as the co-chair of the Board of Trustees of the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada. So I'd like to welcome Michel Goldblum to make some remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrew, and it's great to see so many people here tonight. One of the roles that the McGill Institute for the Study of Canada has is a public education mandate. That's a unique role. Rarely that one finds that in the university, an institute that has both a role internal to the university but also an external education role. And it's when Will Straw, who was Andrew's predecessor, stepped down, we, as a board, very much knew that we wanted to have as his successor someone who could both serve within the university, but also would help build bridges to the broader community. And so we said, it would be kind of ideal to have someone who had both a PhD and experience with public policy. We weren't sure we were going to find that person, but in the end, we did. In Miney Andrew, who had, as he mentioned in his previous job, been the editor of the Ottawa Citizen. So we've been thrilled to have Andrew here. I don't think that we anticipated that within about 2 months of his taking on the job, we would have a public policy issue that emerged that was so much in his area of expertise. And as Andrew said when he called me, I guess a little bit because of my own, I agreed very quickly that I thought this was a really important issue for us to address. This has been a somewhat unsettling time, I think, for many of us. And in terms of kind of having being able to anticipate what's happening in the world, a lot of us would not have imagined that the Brits were going to vote to leave the European Union. And until 2 days ago, I think most people would have thought there's no way the United States could elect Donald Trump. So and if I was making a list, I would have said until last week, I don't think there's any way that you would have systematic and comprehensive wiretapping and police surveillance of journalists. I just wouldn't have thought that was possible in our society. And then the story, not one story came out, but then several, as you know, that this is not just even just an isolated case, but there have been several cases. So there's not much we can do about Brexit, and not much we can do about the choices the Americans have made in terms of their own politics. But this is an important public policy issue. It is absolutely critical to our democracy that we have, that we protect freedom of the press, and that we preserve the capacity for journalists to be able to hold our public authorities to account. So I just finished by saying I've been pleased in some ways at the reaction of the society, a little bit skeptical. Politicians almost all kind of falling over each other to say how important it is to protect freedom of the press. One wonders why, at the same time, they've allowed this situation to occur. But nonetheless, it's a good thing that, at least on a superficial level, that the response in so much of Quebec and Canadian society has been to find this objectionable. I think the challenge that we have, and it's wonderful that Andrew had this initiative, and our panelists are going to be able to talk to us about what it is exactly that we should be doing. What can our newsrooms be doing to protect the journalists? What should we be expecting the state to do? And I'm sure that's some of the issues we're going to get into tonight. So I just want to thank our panelists, thank Andrew, thank all of you for being here, and very much look forward to the discussion.
So, very quickly, I've asked each panelist to speak for about 5 to 7 minutes. I'm not going to keep you time, just some brief introductory remarks, and then also moderate a discussion amongst them. And then when it's time at the end to questions from the audience, there's microphones to my right and my left for those of you who want to direct questions to the members of the panel. And a brief note on language, I've also invited each panelist to use the official language of their choice. And if there's any questions after in French or English, we can either translate or just do it on the fly. The first panelist is Yann Pinault, the Senior Director of News at La Presse. He's been involved in newsroom organization and change management and part of the newsroom leadership team at La Presse since 2000. He started out as a reporter there in 1994. He's also worked as a copy editor, a layout editor, internet news editor. After being the managing editor of Cyber Press in 2004 to 2007, he worked on the merger of the online and print newsrooms, and since then he's been back in the newsroom in its ever-changing challenges. The second panelist is Caroline Walker. She's the Director General of Quebec's Federation of Professional Journalists, which works to defend freedom of the press and public access to information in Quebec. She previously spent 10 years working as a journalist in the UK, France, and Canada. She worked at Radio-Canada as a reporter and a commentator, and then took on the role of morning show producer for CBC Radio in Montreal. And today she also sits on the board of directors of the Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, which works to defend and protect the rights of free expression in Canada around the world. Our third panelist is Mark Banty. He's a partner in Gowling WLG's Montreal office, specializing in media law and acting for both the national and local press. His extensive experience in pre-publication review, libel law, access to information law, and freedom of the press. And as a litigator in media law and commercial law, he acts before the courts of all jurisdictions, including the Supreme Court of Canada. And finally, the fourth panelist is Fabien Gelina, who is a Sir William C. Macdonald Professor of Law at McGill University, where he's taught constitutional law and civil and common law obligations. He was Associate Dean of Law and Director of the Institute for Comparative Law at McGill, and co-founded the Montreal Cyber Justice Laboratory. As a Quebec barrister for 25 years, Professor Gelina acts as an arbitrator in international matters concerning IT and IP, and as an expert witness on comparative law and constitutional law. So, first panelist, Yann, would you like to podium? Or
Yep.
speak from the, you can speak from the podium or whichever you want.
I'll stand up. Since I'm at McGill, I guess I'll try to speak English, but if you get tired of it, just tell me and I'll switch to French. Or if I get tired of my English, I'll switch to French. I'm not someone, I'm plan B in fact. My editor-in-chief should be here, but he had other commitments tonight. So I'm not someone you don't see my name in La Presse Plus, even though I've been a reporter 20 years ago for at least 5 to 6 years. Now I work behind the scenes. My job basically is to make sure the reporters in my newsroom and the editors in my newsrooms have the right tools to do their job. So the purpose of my presence here is I was not an actor of what happened to Patrick Lagacé and some other colleagues of La Presse, but I was a first-hand witness of what happened because I'm always in meetings with my colleagues, and what occurred in the past few days, few weeks at La Presse was in the meeting room right next to my office. I think we broke the story about Lagacé on Monday, October 31st, I think. But to us, the story was already a big one 3 days prior to that, because we got some tips that the police, the Montreal police, had Patrick's phone under surveillance. We had that tip on Thursday night before. And first, Eric Trottier, as all of us, was outraged, as you mentioned. And we started to calm down because we wanted to bring the story right away in La Presse Plus the next Friday. But then we calmed down and we started to think and to do our job, and we started to make calls. And the day after, the Friday, we had the visit of two cops from the Montreal police who asked the phone of Patrick to be under surveillance. They visited us at La Presse to tell their side of the story. And we worked some more, and we took the weekend to think things over, and on the Monday, October 21st, we broke the story, and it was clear in our mind that we had a big one, and it was really for us une prise de conscience, a waking, how do you say?
Crisis of conscience?
Yeah, une prise de conscience, a wake-up call. Because we're a bit like Boy Scouts. We're in journalism because we believe that somehow there is right and wrong, and somehow we can make things right by reporting on things that matter in the society. And we never, but maybe we're a bit naive, but usually we think that people do the best they can, whatever the job they have. And we never thought, even though we had some weird tips sometimes, we never thought the police would go to that extent, and we're wrong. And we broke the story on the Monday, and then we had a follow-up on the Tuesday, and then we had feedback from the Premier Couillard's office on that Tuesday, which led to another story on the Wednesday, because the Premier's office told everyone that they were taking that matter seriously, and they wanted to set up some kind of expert committee. And then we got some other information about the Sûreté du Québec doing some surveillance on other reporters at La Presse and at Radio-Canada, and also at some other news outlets, and so on and so forth for almost 9 days. It took the election of Donald Trump to make that story go out of the news. So it was a really shocking but really interesting meeting for us, because it shook us to our foundations, because ça nous a montré qu'on ne peut pas avoir confiance en personne, et qu'il fallait absolument qu'on redéfinisse les règles du jeu, parce que, de toute évidence, on n'avait pas la même compréhension des règles du jeu que plusieurs autres acteurs importants de la société. Donc c'est un peu dans cet état d'esprit que nous étions dans les dernières semaines, avec l'histoire entourant Patrick et ses collègues. Voilà, c'est suffisant. Merci.
I think Jan expressed very well how the entire profession was shaken to the core in the last few days, last 10 days or so. When I used to work as a journalist at the BBC World Service in London, I reported on many countries where there is no free press, countries that you would call police states. And I never thought that what we would see here in Quebec would be very close to some of the worst dictatorships and very much resembling a police state. I want to start by saying how happy I am that we're having this discussion and that it's open to the public tonight, because I think we have to keep reaffirming the importance of journalism and a free press, and it needs to constantly be explained and re-explained and never taken for granted. And again today we're seeing this. And in fact, I think for the past 2 years, our profession as a whole, and I'm here sort of representing, 2000